Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prognard. I am your host, Jacob Williams. So I guess I lied in my last Armchair General segment on Star Wars when I said that I wouldn't be recording another Star Wars Rebellion video. But here I am. And in this video, I want to do something that I talked about in one of my channel updates where I said that the Prognard is one of the things I wanted to be about is that, when you play a game with your buddies, right? And then for the next hour or so after you play the game, maybe even for the next few days, you're just talking about the game you play, talk about things that were really cool about the game, some critical plays that happened, maybe even some trash talk. I really enjoy that aspect of gaming, and I wanted to do a little bit of that with my channel. So that's what I'm going to do today. So a couple days ago, I played my neighbor, who I'm slowly kind of getting into hobby gaming. I played him at Star Wars Rebellion. Now, before I start discussing this, I want to put out there that my neighbor has played close to 10 games of Rebellion right now. He really enjoys Rebellion. It's one of his favorite games, or so he says. So I don't want to give anyone the impression that he's new to this game by any means. And he's not new per se to hobby gaming. So this is all the setup that I kind of want to get his bona fides out there, just so people don't get the wrong impression. But anyway, we played Star Wars Rebellion the other day, and I crushed him. Okay, I was playing as the Rebels, and he was playing as the Empire. And in this game, I never felt like I was the one on the run. I felt like I just sat there and watched him spin his wheels while I coasted to victory for the most part. Okay? And I kind of wanted to go over some of the strategy that I used in this game that allowed me to feel this way or to have such a great performance during this particular game. Now, some foundational stuff. I'm not proposing that anything I did in this game is like the best strategy ever and you're stupid if you don't do it. That's not what I'm saying. I think that the strategy I used worked with this particular setup and your mileage may vary. Okay, so let me get that out of the way. And again, with all my stuff, everything's an opinion. You may have some killer combo for winning, every single game you play, and that's fine. Definitely feel free to share it in the comments and spread your knowledge. But laying that down as a ground rule. And also, I'm going by memory with a lot of this, and I could get a few details wrong, so also take that for what it is. Okay, so what you're looking at here is I'm recording this with a screen capture software, and this is a picture. And I'm not sure if my cursor is blinking as I'm recording this. I'm not sure if that'll show up on the actual film. But this is a photo that I took maybe 2/3 of the way to 3/4 of a way through the game. And I'm going to talk you through step by step how I was able to win this game. And I apologize for this glare over here in this lower left corner of the board. When I have my overhead light on in my basement and with the plexiglass, I just can't really help it. I know it's annoying and makes for low photo quality, but there we are. All right. So, and one last thing before I start on this. I wrote this up as a session report on Board Game Geek. So if you've already read that, everything I'm about to do here is a rehash with a little more color commentary. And if you're not on BGG or anything like that, well, then this will be all fresh material. but I'm kind of reading off on my phone my session report to kind of keep me on topic, because as a couple of viewers have pointed out, that I can have a tendency to ramble and get off on tangents and just not be clear in general. And I'm going to try and have more guided discussion points as I do videos. Anyway, all right, let's get started. Let me talk about the initial setup. Let me get some color going here. Let me mark some initial setup in green, maybe. Actually, you know what I'll do? Maybe we'll do a dark purple for where the Empire started. So if I recall correctly, the Empire started here with Rhodia. They started here at Salukami. They started with Mandalore. They started with Mustafar. And Mustafar started subjugated, which will be important here in a few minutes. And Megiddo. All right. So that's where my opponent started with his planets. All right. I started with, and let's see, what color should I go with for me? Maybe I'll go with some sort of light blue or some sort of, what would you call this, turquoise? I started with Naboo, Kashyyyk, and Mon Calamari. All right. So, based on all of this, or this was the initial setup. And what should I change colors to? Go with the let me go with the yellow. That's not yellow enough. There we go. So based on this setup, I saw that the Empire was concentrated really heavily on this side of the board. Okay? That there was a lot of empty space down here. Now, not always, because I do occasionally do cheeky base placement, which is where you put it in some place that's really dangerous because it's really close to an Imperial setup, but it's almost like a hiding in plain sight thing. It's so obvious that Empire doesn't bother to look there. I do occasionally do that, but I have to admit that I'm guilty, and more often than not, I try to put it a decent distance away from the Empire. Okay? And then let me just erase that there. So based on this map setup, and based on a previous game I played where I kind of experimented with this, or maybe not that I experimented, but I saw a lot of potential for what I'm about to talk about, I ended up picking the Rebel base here on Endor. Okay? And let me talk about some reasons why I picked Endor. First of all, and I hate how my screen auto slides like this, but that's the recording software I have. Let's talk about some advantages of Endor. It in of itself is a remote planet. I find that more often than not, at least in the meta game where I play, Empire does not search remote planets, and thus they tend to make better Rebel base locations. All right, why don't the Imperials ever want to go there? Well, keep in mind that the Empire has two basic strategies that they have to do, and if they can do them at the same time, then it's all the better. They need to expand and sweep planets so that they can eliminate them as potential Rebel base locations. They also need to up their production so that way they can get even more plastic onto the board to assist them with sweeping. Okay, and going to populous systems allows them to do both of these at the same time. So if it can be helped, Empire prefers not to go to remote planets. Okay? So Endor in of itself is a good spot because it's a remote planet. Okay? Let me switch to a different color here. Get some orange going. It's going to be like in living color over here. All right. So Endor in itself is a remote planet. Now look at the only two planets that it's adjacent to is Bespin and Hoth. Hoth is another remote planet, so the Empire just naturally does not want to go here. Okay? But look at Bespin. Bespin only has one production icon, and moreover, it gives the Empire ATSTs. Now, I'm not saying that ATSTs are a bad unit. Far from it. They're a very good unit. But it's only one production. It's just not as juicy of a target for the Empire. So, having two systems that are relatively low targets just naturally makes the Empire not want to come down here. And more often than not, when they start with Mustafar over here, and again, I'm not sure how well my cursor is showing up. Excuse me. So hopefully this will look better than it does on my screen now. Typically, when they start here, they want to start looking at swinging around to get Utapau, assuming that they don't block it with the Emperor, which I was lucky in this game, and I was able to open with Utapau because I saw that my opponent had the Emperor out on mission, and I'll maybe come back to that if I remember. So, Mustafar is the only planet worthwhile in this region, and it just tends to be a better springboard to go north than it is to go south. So I've noticed these tendencies, and that's one of the reasons why I went with Endor as the rebel base. And then here's another... Actually, let me come back to... Let me change topics real quick before I go any further. So that's why I picked Endor, is because it's a remote planet, so Empire is less likely to want to go there. And it's surrounded by another remote planet and a populous system that's not really worth targeting. And the last thing I want to say before I switch topics is that I saw the defensive potential of this planet because of these two space barriers right here. Okay? Maybe even let me draw this with an orange line in case this isn't, the cursor's not showing up. This orange line is kind of like the entrance into this region, and these two space barriers create an interesting terrain around Endor that I felt that I could use to my advantage. And I set about doing what I called a bottleneck strategy. All right. Let me get rid of that. So let me talk about creating this bottleneck. So again, this orange line represents some sort of terrain that I'm going to use to defend my base on Endor. Okay? The first thing that I needed to do was prevent access into this region. Now, when the game started, my opponent had Mustafar subjugated. So I knew what I needed to do was go ahead and sabotage it right away. And I'll keep using orange. So right away I sabotaged it on the first turn. And here's a little side note about sabotage. Rebel players tend to think sabotage is useless because of the research and development card that the Empire has. You need to be really smart on how you use sabotage, okay? You can't lead off with it as your first mission, because if your opponent has R&D queued up, then they're just going to use it and get rid of your sabotage marker. All right, so that's not good. You kind of want to make it one of your last actions during a turn. Another thing is research and development, and this is a commonly mistake among newbies, and I'm pretty sure I've made this mistake myself. Research and development can only be used in Imperial loyal systems. Okay? Not subjugated, Imperial loyal. Okay? So, remember how I said that Mustafar started off subjugated? That made it a great target for sabotage. And the reason why this is great is because if the Empire wants to get rid of that sabotage marker, they have to first do a rule by fear or some other card to get them a loyalty, and they have to flip that into Imperial loyal before they can R&D it. And remember, the key to this game, as the Rebels, is action economy. You will win the game when every action you take costs the Empire 2 actions to undo it. Because that is 2 actions that the Empire is going to waste trying to find the base. And not to mention, if the card they're going to use is Rule by Fear to flip your subjugated or your sabotage subjugated system, you can send someone like Mon Mothma out there to block it, and you can even stretch out that action economy if you want. Okay, so that was the first step in creating my bottleneck. Because now once I had this in place, the Empire cannot deploy here, and they're not getting the plastic that this system produces. All right. Another key to the bottleneck was Solist. Somewhere around turn 3, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was on turn 3. I was able to do a build alliance and get Solist for myself. Okay, and that allowed me to get the objective. Let me read the name of the card. Regional support, where you gain a reputation if you have all planets in a system loyal to you. So I was able to get Utapau, Naboo, and Solist under rebel control. But the Empire was able to sweep in and take Solist from me. And then once they took it from me, I went ahead and sabotaged it as well. All right. So now look at the state of how my base is protected. Mustafar is sabotaged. Solist is sabotaged. So the closest planet that they can deploy to start moving into the region is Corellia. Okay. And what's great is there's this piece of space barrier right there that prevents them from coming straight to it. So they have to come around to Mustafar, then into Bespin, and then into Endor. Which seems like it's not that big of a deal, but when you're actually playing it, I don't know, the Empire just doesn't want to do that. It just seems too much. I don't know, they tend to, I don't know, kind of abandon these things until they get unsabotaged, or at least the players that I play do. And then I guess you can kind of get in from Dagobah, but again, it's a remote planet. It just is not a high value target for the Empire. And not to mention, in this individual case, I'm basically controlling this whole northeast quadrant of the map. So that really helped out. The only other base of operations for the Empire is here on Rhodia. But when my opponent was setting up, he only put down 1 assault shuttle, 1 TIE fighter, and 3 stormtroopers, I think. So I put down a lot of hardware in Naboo. I put down a Corvette, a Y-Wing, an X-Wing, a speeder, and a couple of rebel troopers. And I went over and I took a big risk. I took over the Corellian Corvette, an X-Wing and a Y-Wing, and I thought that was enough to win the space battle. And I was really iffy on the ground because the Corvette can only hold 2 units. So I had a snow speeder and a rebel trooper go up against 3 stormtroopers, and luckily I was able to get the victory. So that's why you see this snow speeder on Rhodia that's Imperial loyal. So I was able to blockade this system, and now that I had complete control of the Northeast here, that really made very few entry points into my region over here that I was depending on for defense. All right. So that was me creating the bottleneck that I needed to get to victory. So let's go back to Sabotage real quick. I was using it a lot to basically put... let's see, how should I put this? One of the Empire's strengths is that they can get a lot of plastic onto the board, and that's what they're going to use to sweep and ferret out the base. All right, to prevent that strategy, every turn I queued up Sabotage, and every time I saw a subjugated system, I did my best to go sabotage it. And I was able to do that on Kata Nemoidia. Let's see, what's this planet here? Why can't I remember the name of that planet? I feel like I'm pretty good at this. Why can't I remember it? Oh well, whatever this planet is, I sabotaged it. I could zoom in, but I don't want to. So if we, and I swear I had one more. Well, I probably did at some other point, but as I've taken this photo, I had 5 planets sabotaged or blockaded. So I had this one that I can't remember the name of. Oh, and that's driving me crazy. What is that planet? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I don't want to waste valuable airtime on that. Anyway, so let's do accounting here. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets sabotaged at this point in the game. And then Empire only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I knew I was missing some. So I had 5 out of 14. So almost over a third of their production was sabotaged. All right. And I knew that was working because my neighbor just kept cussing me out like the whole game because he was getting pissed at how much I was putting the hurt on them. But again, the sabotage is mostly effective when you're doing it to subjugated planets. If you're doing it to Imperial loyal, you can just expect that it's going to go away in the next turn. All right, that's just the way it works. Okay, let's see, what else do we want to talk about? So I really felt that sabotage was key. I was able to get a number of objectives to go off. Let's see, how many did I get off? I pulled out all the cards so I could remember the names. I was able to get 6 objective cards in for a total gain of 7 reputation. However, my opponent, as you can see in the picture maybe, was able to capture Leia. And let me go ahead and highlight that in blue, I guess. He was able to capture and freeze Princess Leia into carbonite, so I lost a reputation. That's why it maybe doesn't look as clear over here on the board. All right, well, what were some of the objectives that I got to go off? Well, another reason why I was pursuing the sabotage strategy or tactics, I don't know what you want to call it, so much, was because I started with cut supply lines as my opening objective card that says play if at least 3 Imperial systems contain either a sabotage marker or a rebel unit. I was able to get that, I was able to play that on turn 2. Because first turn I sabotaged Mustafar, and I was able to take control over Rhodia, as I talked about a few minutes ago. And then what this picture doesn't show was that I did start with Mon Calamari, but I don't know, it's kind of become the standard move if Empire starts on Salukami to just come in here and roll Mon Calamari. And I sabotaged it on turn 2 just to deny him Star Destroyers. But he was able to flip it and get rid of the sabotage. But those are the 3 I had sabotage to play, cut the supply lines. See, as I talked about, I was able to play regional support, because at the time, and I think this was on turn 3, for like the longest time, I was just playing objective cards just back to back to back. And I was also tuning my hand of objectives with infiltration, which I think is key to a rebel strategy. My region was the one with Utapau, Naboo, and Sullust. So I got regional support. Then I got Leave No One Behind, play if no captured rebels. So that was, I think I got that to go off the turn before Leia got captured. I was able to then play Popular Support, play if 6 systems have rebel loyalty, and I believe this is on the map. Yeah, I've got Ord Mantell, Kashyyyk, Bathui, Naboo, Genosius, Utapau. Yep, those were the 6. And then this is where it got interesting. I'll keep this in blue. Notice here on my mission cards, I've got Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker and General Dodonna keyed up on a mission. That mission was Plan the Assault, which let me take ships from the Rebel base and fly them straight to a system with an Imperial unit, which was here with the Death Star. And I had 1 in a million, so I was able to blow up the Death Star. Got 2 rep off of Death Star plans. And then the last one I was able to get off on the last turn was Liberation. I believe I went over here to Kessel with a Incite Rebellion, and I was able to easily take out 1 dude and played Liberation for winning a combat in a subjugated system. So those were all of the objectives I got to go off, which I felt pretty great about. Now, I never had to move the base in this game. Now, that said, unfortunately, the Rebel base was found. As you see, Leia was captured and frozen in carbonite, and my neighbor was able to torture her using, what's the name of that card? Interrogation, maybe? It's the one where, if it's successful, you have to name 3 systems, and one of them has to be where the Rebel base is. I tried to give out some convincing false intel by saying the base was on Yavin 4, Tatooine, I believe, and then Endor. But apparently he had already drawn the Yavin 4 card, and I don't know. I guess he just knew based on what I was doing over here and the way I assaulted the Death Star from out of the base. He just knew that the base was on Endor, and he was able to use the card Planetary Conquest, which basically just lets you teleport walkers and some troops to the rebel base. Luckily, I had General Riken. I believe it was this turn, the turn I blew up the Death Star. Luckily, I had Riken over here to go out there and defend. And between that and my shield generator, I was able to hold off. And that was the only point in the game where I just felt like I was not in control and that there might be a slight chance of me losing. But other than that, I felt like I just dominated the game. Probably one of my best performances as the Allies thus far. So that's pretty much it for the game, or my breakdown. So what do I have to say in conclusion? I'm really bad at wrapping up my thoughts. I just want to reiterate that Endor makes a great rebel base. For all the reasons that I mentioned, which is it's a remote planet, it's surrounded by very low production planets, and it's just in the spot that's an inconvenience for the Empire to come find it. It's really easy to bottleneck if you get smart with your sabotage, and if you can continue to sabotage subjugated systems, you can really put a monkey wrench into the Empire's sweeping operation. I don't know that there's anything else to say. I'm not going to promise no more Star Wars Rebellion videos. I love this game a lot. It was my absolute favorite game of last year. I'd probably put this in my top 10 games of all time. I love it a lot. And hopefully if you're watching this, you love it a lot too and didn't find this boring. So I guess with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks for watching.